everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the July edition of Creatively Class with Impact, CFDA's Impact Program, the Council of Fashion Designers of America. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what Impact is an initiative, a program that was started after the murder of George Floyd and the CFDA Executive Board meeting that was held on June 4th of 2020 to empower, create opportunity, and highlight, spotlight Black and Brown creatives and professionals in the fashion industry. And we're so excited to be partnering with Creatively on this program and this initiative. And it's so excited that all of you have made time to be here today. My name is Elliot Carlyle. I am a fashion industry consultant, a coach, and a speaker. And we'll get into my career today and my story and my journey. And hopefully you will be inspired, educated, and empowered in some way. Thank you for making the time to join. I do want to let you know that you can feel free to ask your questions, make your comments. You can raise your hand. You may also put them in the chat. And Lizzie Mack from Creatively team is our technician today, and she will be facilitating today's class, and she will respond and let me know who is asking what and how you can join. And the instructions will be there in the chat. So please feel free to engage. I'm very conversational, and I want this to be a conversation as well. So feel free to raise your hand at any given time. You will not interrupt me at all, I promise. And again, thank you for being here. So without further ado, Lizzie, do you have anything you'd like to say before I get started?
No, just thank you so much, Elliot. I know everyone is really excited. This has been a topic that so many people in our community have asked for. So we're just so grateful to have you here and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, thank you very much, Lizzie. I appreciate it. We will get started. So, um, wow, how did I get here? How did I get here? This is interesting. So I will tell you from the beginning that I consider myself an outsider who happens to be inside. Just given the theme of today's class, succeeding as an outsider, I really do consider myself that, and I will get into that a little bit further and see how you identify as well, and maybe something that I have and experience and will share will resonate with you. To start at the very beginning, for those of you who do not know my story, I had no interest in fashion at all as a career, no idea of what the fashion industry was like or a career in fashion would be, because when I started out in music. I was a child who my dad tried to get me in sports, and I remember he wanted me to play basketball, and I played city league basketball, and I made one goal. I made the ball made it in the net one game, one goal the entire season, and it was for the other team. And that was because nobody told me. I guess I didn't pay attention in practice that at halftime they switch goals. I still don't know anything about sports, so I don't know what the purpose of switching goals is. I think that is a waste of time, and it plays tricks on people. But I made 1 point the whole season. It was for the other team. And so after that, my dad was like, "This is not going to work for you. You're not going to be able to do sports." And I wasn't interested in sports anyway. So I decided to do music, and that was because I always had been able to sing. It was a gift, and I knew that I could sing. And when I was in school, I started performing. I was in all the performing groups, and so I performed from middle school, elementary school, middle school, and then went to high school. I was in show choir, jazz band. Went on to pursue a full music scholarship, and I grew up in Florida. I'm a native of Florida and a military brat. Both of my parents retired there out of the Air Force, and so it was not an area where there was really access to fashion, or it wasn't an area where fashion shows were going on. I didn't know any designers growing up. I knew people who could sew, but as far as the fashion industry, what we know it to be, for me, I didn't have access to that. And so music was really what was my life. I consumed it. I ate, slept, and breathed music. And I went on to that full music scholarship. And my second year in school, I decided to drop out. I just no longer wanted to do music anymore. I had done enough performing and singing and traveling, and I had done it with some of the best and at some of the most renowned venues. I've even sang at Carnegie Hall, not as a soloist, but in a group. I sang at Carnegie Hall and the Paris Opera House. So I had done a lot, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I had never asked myself the question, what else was I good at, or what else could I do? Music was what I did because it was the only thing that I could do at the time, but I never considered, well, what else am I good at, or what other direction could I take? And music at that point had been what everyone expected from me. I also play piano. So it was a thing people enjoyed, but I didn't get the same thing that other people got when I performed. And so I decided to give myself a break, and then I would decide what else to do. So this was back in the MySpace days, and most of you know that in the MySpace days, social media was very, very different, but connecting with people was a little bit more genuine than it is now. And I was able to make some connections with people in fashion, and I saw that people started talking about New York Fashion Week, and I wanted to go. I got curious out of nowhere. This strange curiosity came, and I booked a ticket and came. And I thought New York Fashion Week was like Broadway. You buy a ticket and you go to the show you want to go to. Had no clue that that's not the way that it works. And so I was in for a rude awakening. I'm going fast with my story because I want to get into a lot of other things today, but I want you to understand and just have a picture of what the beginning for me was like. And I then I stood outside, and talked to some people and found out that you had to get invited, that there was a PR team, and didn't know what that was. And there was an invitation that was sent out based on what you did in the industry. And I wasn't a writer and I wasn't a buyer. So, chances are I wouldn't get invited, just what my understanding was at the time. So I asked, well, what do I have to do to get in? And I want you to understand that was a very powerful question, having this conversation with this young lady who was a publicist from Seventh House PR. And she's telling me about what she knows about fashion. She's telling me about her career, how she got started. And I then had the question, how do I get in? How do I get in? And oftentimes just in life, whatever it is that you're outside of that you want to get in, and you have no access, you have no education, you have no connection, you don't have a key, so, but there is a door, so you know that it does open. But how do I get in without a key? How do I get in without a connection? And that was where I was. And the young lady told me that I should probably volunteer. She said, you should come back next season as a volunteer and apply. And that opportunity will give you a view of all that goes on inside. And that was my curiosity, was what is this like? I was in a place I had never been before. I was in a space that I did not know, but I was very, very curious. And there was something in me that told me, you need to pursue this. Again, I had no connection. I had no education. At that time, I don't even believe that I had even read a fashion magazine before. I grew up with Ebony, Jet, and Essence. That was what was in my house. I don't necessarily remember looking at those for fashion. But I do remember, looking at them, and those were Black magazines, and those were the magazines that were common in the homes of people that look like me. But I never looked at anything else outside of that. And so for me, this was an entirely new world. I'm seeing these people now that I get the volunteer opportunity. I come to New York, and this is what, and we can stay here, Lizzie. I come to New York, and I get this access, and I get to see everything that is going on. So one of the things that I want you to understand about this part right here is that when you feel something, because people often ask me, well, how did you know? How did you know that you were supposed to do this? I honestly did not necessarily know, but something in my mind, but something in me felt this connection. I think that's the beauty of when you look at fashion, or when you look at any industry, for those who are coming from, engineering or finance or whatever career that you may have or be pursuing or be active in. When you look at something that's different, and you know that it's a part of you, and you know that it's for you, but you just don't have any tangible evidence, how do you keep going? And that's the thing that I did. I said, I'm going to position myself just to see, just out of curiosity. And I want to inspire that, because there's many people who are listening today and watching, and I'm sure that whether you're in fashion, you may be curious or inspired about another level or another position in the industry, another arena of creativity or professionalism. And some of you may be listening, and you're not wanting to be in in fashion, or you're wanting to be in fashion, but coming from another industry, or you're wanting to go from fashion to another industry. Again, the creativity is what will navigate you. The curiosity is what will navigate you. And it's okay to stand in that. It is okay to stand in that. So what got me out of the gate first was knowing that there was something for me, that this desire was connected to something. This interest was connected to something. This curiosity was connected to something. And I knew that I had to go to it because it wasn't coming to me. Remember, I was in an area where there was no fashion market. There wasn't fashion shows. There weren't people, there weren't stylists, and there weren't designers, and there weren't, I mean, I don't know any professional models that I went to school with. And there were those now that were older who I went to school with that have now done acting or modeling, but they left. Nobody there was doing anything. So it wasn't anything that I saw. There's a quote from Beyonce that I love: "You can't be what you can't see." So I had never seen anybody that I felt I can be him, or I can be her, or I can at least do what they do. There was no example for that for me because my world was music. But I did know that since it wasn't coming to me, I had to go to it. I had to position myself for what I was looking for. So I want you to understand, just based on that alone, when you feel like, and if you are listening and you feel like that, and you're in that position, but you know you desire to go to something else, you know that there is something else for you, position yourself for it. If it's not coming to you, you can go to it, and it's okay. There's momentum that comes in that. There's momentum that comes in that, and movement will come with that momentum. And so I tell people, get started right where you are. My mentees, I know many of them are on today, but get started right where you are, and just look around for the tools that you have. You may not have what all that you think you may need, but to get started, you have enough. To get started, you do have enough. I love this quote I put here, that fashion is an aspirational universe. And comes from Fern Malice, who is the creator of New York Fashion Week, who I actually work with. And I will get to that later on in my class today. But Fern Malice says this all the time, and I really believe it. It's an aspirational universe. The thing that I love about it, it's a creative world. It's a creative universe that there's always room to expand and grow. As a creative, you will feel like there's another level for you. There's another space for you, and it will pull you. And that's what I discovered when I came to Fashion Week for the first time. That's what I got to see, all the different avenues, all the different aspects, all the different trades, all the different professions. I said I knew nothing other than seeing models and designers. I knew nothing about editors, choreographers, movement directors. I mean, there are so many different facets to this industry, and beyond what you see when you watch a fashion show, sitting at home, when you are alive and you see all the moving parts. It led me to the place to say, now that I see, what is it that I want to be? Now that I can see, what is it that I want to be? Let's go to the next slide, Lizzie. So I pulled this, and I'm gonna do a poll question in just a moment, but I pulled this and I want you to look at this. This is the dynamics of identity groups and organizations, not to insult your intelligence, but just for my audible consolation. Dynamics of identity groups in organizations. This is a picture of insider and outsider groups based on the insider outsider inclusion and diversity in the American fashion industry report by PVH and CFDA. And I believe this was released in 2016. In the year 2016. But when you look at this, I want to ask a question after you've had time to examine it for yourself, and ask, how do you identify based on what is presented here? Do you identify as an insider, as an outsider, or do you see yourself as both?
Apologies, Elliot. My mouse goes missing, so I'm going to run the poll just like this.
Okay, no problem.
So we'll give you guys a couple seconds to answer the poll. Give you guys a couple more seconds, and I have the definitions up as well. Once more, if you guys want to double check. All right, I'm going to end the poll for you, Elliot, and I'm going to share the results right now if you'd like to share with the rest of the group.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. This is really interesting. So we have 50%. This is 50-50. We have 50% that say I identify as an outsider, and we have 50% that say I identify as both. Wow. Interesting. Um, so a lot of what I say today, thank you for that. And this helps me because a lot of what I will say today will resonate with you because I definitely understand why you say either or. Next slide, Lizzie. So once you get inside, and this is me. Once you're inside, and I'm talking about, I can go to a tangible experience, and this was just me inside the tents, but look at it in a broader context for your life. Once you're inside, what comes next? Once you're able to see what comes next, because the truth is the truth is that there's a hype that comes once you get inside. It's with anything. Just think of any room you've ever wanted to be in, any shoulders that you ever wanted to rub, anybody you've ever wanted to rub shoulders with. You get in, you have the experience, and it's really dope and it's wonderful. Or you get to meet whoever you wanted to meet, and you get your picture and you're able to post it on Instagram. We didn't have Instagram at the time, but you're able to post it on Instagram. But then, and so you get the hype, and it's, oh, it's awesome and it's wonderful. But then, what does that mean? What is that connected to? So for me, I've learned from an early age, especially being one who was in performing arts, there has to be more beyond the hype, right? And so my thing was, well, now that I'm inside, what is going to be next for me? It's not just enough to be at Fashion Week. Okay, this is cute, but what am I going to do for the rest of the year? I can't be in the industry just bouncing from Fashion Week to Fashion Week. I actually have to work. So I needed to decide, what is it that I'm going to do? What comes next for me? And this is when I started to look at everything that was going around, all the different movements, and I decided that I was really attracted to PR people. There was something about the way that they showed up. There was something about the way that they moved through the tent. I was looking at what they were doing. I was, as a production captain at the tents, I was able to work with many of them in setting up and preparing for the shows. And so I felt there's something with them that resonates with me. Part of it was because back home I had been working for an event planning company. We just didn't have a PR department. So whatever event that you did the PR, the marketing, the event planning, you did everything yourself. So I knew that I could do what it is that they did. I just never had context for it. Right there, some of you, it's not that you're not able to do what it is that you are able to do, you've just never seen it in context. And sometimes, because if you're a visionary and you're a person who is a pioneer, or you're a person who is a creative, many times you are actually creating the context for what it is that you have to give, or what it is that you have to build. And that is something that I think is beautiful about life. But you do, as a creative, and we'll get further into this, have the ability to create your context. Also, as a creative, you may believe that fashion and fantasy coexist. I think about this often. As a professional, you may understand that fashion is a business that runs on a system. Which path authentically resonates with you? It's a matter of perspective, and I put this as a rhetorical question just for you to sit with. What resonates with me? Do I want to go the professional route? Do I want to be a creative? I knew, for me, looking at all that I was seeing, I didn't want to be a designer. I didn't want to be a stylist. I was Xing, off everything that I was looking at. That's not me. That's not me. That's not me. But PR people, it just resonated with me, and I was very inspired. And so then what I did was go back home and figure out, well, how is this going to work for me? Because I was not moving to New York. I didn't feel like I had to move to New York. So I'm going to build this right where I am. And so I redesigned, I didn't know what branding was back then, but I redesigned my MySpace page to reflect that I did fashion, PR, and creative direction, and events. And I just started attracting clients, right, via social media, seriously, and even got a business partner, and then went on to build a boutique PR firm called VRE7. It was not, well, Visual Renaissance Experience 7. It was better known as VRE7.com at the time, with my business partner, KJ Anderson. And we worked with other fashion weeks. We worked with independent designers. We worked with entertainers. And much of what I do now and the way that I'm known now came from those years, because for the first 6-7 years of my business, that's how I established my name and my brand. But I knew I knew that I wanted to be in the business of the industry. I knew that I wanted to be a professional in the industry. It's the way that I saw myself. It's the way that I wanted to present, the way that I wanted to dress. I wanted to be in an office. I wanted to be at a desk. That is the way that I saw myself. And so I made the decision to build my career as a PR professional starting out. And oftentimes I'll say this, I see we have a question, Lizzie. We can take that after I touch on this. But do I want a resume or a portfolio is a question I tell people to ask. The reason why, because as a professional, you'll find yourself, sometimes you feel like you're bound to a resume, whereas a creative, you can actually show something. You actually have art or you have creativity that you have, you can present in a portfolio style. And so if you're applying for a job or looking for clients or wanting to, create opportunity, you have a body of work that you can show this way versus a professional. If you're in accounting or in HR or anything like that, it's like, well, I don't have a portfolio for what I do, but I do have a very extensive resume. And sometimes you may feel bound to that. I recommend getting a creative consultant in that way that can show you how you can turn your resume into a portfolio, because it is possible to exist as a creative and a professional at the same time. Let's take a question, Lizzie.
All right, great. Rachel, Irva, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak if you'd like to ask your question. And now you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, I just did. Oh, hi. What about people who have extensive training in fashion design that may want to have their own fashion house? How would you go about starting that process?
So, well, of course, I hate answering questions with the questions, but is this is the designer who you're already designing and have a collection?
No, I went to fashion school, and I've been designing all my life, but I went to fashion school in LA, and went from A to Z, from pattern execution to marker making, grading, the whole shebang. I know how to do it all.
Okay.
But I was always chastised because they said my creative energy was too big, and I kind of flunked out. They said they said you're too much.
We'll deal with that.
And that just really put a damper on my my whole I'm going to be a fashion designer thingy. So yeah.
Okay, you're trying to shift me too quick, but I will say this. First of all, that too much question is very, very heavy, especially for people who exist like us. Outsiders, I guarantee you, and I know this because it's been the story of my life. I pretty much, for the most part, I'll say for most of my life, I'll just say it this way, I felt like I was too much or not enough. And it's not a bad thing at all. I actually wrote a book about it, but I felt like that because I am different. And one of the plights, I'll say this, of outsiders is that because of our difference, we often don't feel celebrated enough, contained in the
so
way.
True.
So because that is a fact, you have to understand that that matters not. You are enough, you have enough, and you can get started right where you are. So my advice to you would be that your barrier is not necessarily can you do it, because you just said you can do it all. What you, as a creative, what you may struggle with is understanding the business and actually being tactical about the business side. So I that you get a partner so that you can focus on the creativity while someone else handles the business and builds a business for you. Because you have to, again, what I said earlier, this is how you connect what I said. You have to now build the context for what it is that you've created. It's not that it can't exist. You just have to create the context for it.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ooh, that's a loaded question.
Thank you so much, Rachel Irva.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And thank you for asking that question. And anybody, feel free to ask. So when we look at this now, I will just first tell you, this slide, we can sit here and argue this for the next hour. All of this is relative, and all of this can be argued. I just don't believe this is absolute truth, but to have some context for a conversation, I will look at these two definitions because they are from Merriam-Webster. What is a creative? A creative is marked by the ability or power to create, given to creating the creative impulse, a creative genius, having the quality of something created rather than imitated, imaginative, the creative arts and creative writing. For me, I look at this and say a creative is connected to being creative is connected to artistry, meaning there's something that you can produce. There's something that you can produce without technical training, any technical skills, any classes you've had to take. This just comes out of you. There's something that you have that you can just do because it's innovative, it's inspired by your intelligence, and you don't need any guidance or instruction on how to produce this thing, this sound, if you're a singer, whatever it is. As a professional, and this is more relating to the characteristic of a profession which is designed or attributed to having some trained or technical skill or degree. So these are things that you have to be skilled in. They're specific to a specific skill set. And so because of that, this is identified as a profession, something that you've earned merit in. Whereas a creative, you can come out the womb doing this thing. So these are just two. And of course, I'm sure everyone on here could give their own definition of what a professional as a creative is. But just for context sake, I wanted to list this here. So how do you see yourself? How do you identify? Would you say you're a creative, or would you say you are a professional? I love that.
Here are the results.
I identify as both. I like that. I like that. Let's keep going. This is good. Next slide, Lizzie. So in understanding how you position yourself, once you decide what it is that you want to do and you decide where you want to be in a market, it is important for you to do research. I tell people all the time, you have to eat, sleep, and breathe whatever it is that you're in. If you want to go into culinary arts, then you need to eat, sleep, and breathe cooking. You should know every cooking show. You should know all the major chefs. You need to know that you know that you know in terms of the business, the industry. So you have to become a part of it. You have, especially when you're coming from the outside, as most of you have identified with, then you are going to have to position yourself because again, there has been no door or no seat prepared for you or no door open for you. So how do you position yourself? By infiltrating the market, infiltrating the industry. And you do that by becoming a part of it. You learn the language, you learn the movement, you learn the business. So you have to research. And this is important because if you do not, you cannot position yourself to sell accordingly. You can be as awesome as a designer, as an editor, as a speaker, as a graphic designer, as a stylist, whatever it is that you would want to do. You can be very, very awesome and then feel undervalued and then also feel underpaid. Now, let's differentiate the two here, because you need to know the value of your work. And this is something that I did not do. So when I started PR, that was the one question that I didn't ask. Don't ask me why. Maybe because I was working for a firm at the time. I was working for an event planning company. So I was paid. I was building this business on the side. And so for me, when clients would come to me, I would just make up prices. I mean, I would think about, well, my cell phone bill costs this much. So can you do this much a month? Or I would add up what my gas expenses were for the month. Well, okay, so if I have this month, this will take care of my gas. So I'm trying to go, I want to go on this cruise in September, and that cruise is going to cost me this much, and this person can pay for this. And literally, I promise, that is how I was pricing my services. Shout out to any of my former clients who are on today. But I really was, I was very affordable syndrome, which is one of the reasons why I think I became so popular. In addition to my skill, I was very good at what I did in PR. I'm a publicist at heart, but I really, really just made up pricing along the way. You need to ask the questions, and you need to do the research and understand what the market value is and market pricing is according to your services, or your gifts, your talents, your abilities. Because if you do not, then however you set yourself is what you will attract. And if you start people out with a discount, then you'll give them a discount mindset. And so we have to understand this, because when I started asking questions and finding out what people were paying for PR and what agencies were getting, and I was looking at myself like, now wait a minute, why am I not paid that? Why am I not getting that? It was because I did not know. And oftentimes, many times, one of the most hesitant questions is about money. One of the most hesitant conversations is about money. And so, that's a good question, Sophia. And so I just wasn't sure. And so I did learn that I had to research, because there's a saying out there in the world, in the universe, and I don't know why people say this, but people often say, well, make sure people pay you what you're worth. Make people pay you what you're worth. Nobody can pay you what you're worth. You are priceless. Nobody can buy you. I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care. The richest man on earth couldn't buy me, couldn't pay for me, and pay me what I'm worth, because at the end of the day, I'm priceless. But you can pay for the value of my service. You can pay for the value of my service. And according to the market, I am a consultant who should get paid this much. According to the market, this garment should cost this much. According to the market, I'm a designer who should be, I'm a graphics artist who should be paid this much. It's just according to the market. I'm telling you, at being an outsider, you will always have to defend your pricing. So you need to know it. You need to know it, because you will have to defend it. And then this is where you have to be careful, because the imposter syndrome will come in. And especially with the reason why I said earlier, social media wasn't what it was when I was coming along. What it is now, we have so much to compare ourselves to. If we're honest, you can get on Instagram and you're on there 2 seconds, and as soon as you start scrolling, you're comparing. Especially if you follow other people who do what you do. You're looking at what they're doing. They got this opportunity. They're in the press for this. They're speaking over here. They're traveling over here. And you're like, I do the same thing. Why am I not successful? Why am I not successful at that level? Why am I not making this money? Why am I not making that money? Let me just tell you, the comparison syndrome is almost programmed into us. I mean, the comparison complex, it's almost programmed into us, just because of the way that this world that we live in is. But I'm telling you, you do not have to compare yourself, and you don't have to allow any imposter syndrome to infiltrate. I have learned this in a very, very rough way. I will tell you guys that in 2018, I found myself in this was just a few years ago, but I found myself in one of the lowest places that I've ever been in my life. And I was homeless, working in the industry. And yes, while working, I was homeless. And I was working, and I keep having to say that, because that's a heavy dichotomy. I'm not someone who was not doing anything, wasn't productive. I was working and very successful. And on one side, my life was soaring. My career was moving. I was being effective. I was producing. There were results, and things were happening for me. But then on the other side, I did not have a place to call home. I didn't have a space or a place of my own, and that lasted for about 8 months. 8 months, I actually lived in a homeless shelter here in New York, and this is while people were seeing me at Fashion Week and traveling with Fern and flying first class and riding in nice cars and eating at nice restaurants and talking and sitting in boardrooms and at some of the most exclusive events in New York, and doing all of that. And I would leave and go home to check into a homeless shelter at night, because I just didn't make enough money to have my own place. And I know that is something that I don't share a lot. And it's something that when I do share, it always inspires people, because I know for a fact that all of us are working through life. All of us are working through unfair advantages. All of us are working. We can all argue, that the place and space in which we work through, and the things that we have to work from and with sometimes are very, very, very hard and rough, very internally. And while we smile on the outside, and while we do this work on the outside, inside and behind the scenes, it's a struggle. And I did not want to allow myself to get through this class and not speak to that. And I was really inspired that Lizzie asked me to share that, because what I want you to know is you can make it, and you can work your way out of it. And what I had to realize is what kept me in that place and space is understanding that although this is my circumstance, this is not my identity. There is more for me, and I know there's more for me. How can I'm looking at, and sometimes it just takes a simple scroll through your Instagram, and you look at the work you've done, and you look at the places you've been, and I said, wow, I'm doing all of that from here. All of this is happening from here, from this place. If I can do that from this place, then what can I do from the next place? If I can build that from this place, then I can also build my next space. And so that's the thing that kept me going, because I'm here to tell you, I don't care if it's even financially, your financial circumstance is not indicative of your character or your identity. And so do not allow yourself to judge yourself by your material possessions or the conditions of your current circumstance, because it will change and it will shift. I promise you. And it is not indicative of your ability or your skill. It is not indicative of your ability or your skill. Yeah. Go back one slide for me, Lizzie. Thank you. Understand. I had to let that sit. That's heavy for me to share, but just understand that I know, and many people, you look at people like us, whomever we may be, but you look at people like us who are in certain positions in this industry, and it looks like everything is going and flowing for us. But I promise you, we've had to work to be where we are, and it takes work to sustain and remain here. So having these mental keys and wisdoms and inspirations will keep you going. Also understand that the other thing that's important is that everything is not about money. Everything is not about money. Money is very important because we all need to live. We have lights that need to be on. We got to eat. We got to shop. Some of you, I'm not a shopper like that, but there's things that we need money for, because money is how we transact in this world. But all currency is not money. Money is not the only form of currency. There are varied forms of currency. Currency comes in variety. There's relational currency. There's internal currency. There's emotional currency. There's inspirational currency. There's empowerment currency. And so just be aware that while sometimes you may feel like you're in a low place, or you're in a place of less than because of the money that you may not be making or you may be making, just understand that there are other ways of fulfillment. And oftentimes I've learned that when I increase my gratitude, then I can attract more money too. That's another class. But while you're doing that, there's things that I found to do in my career that have really, really been fulfilling for me, when oftentimes the money hasn't been there to fulfill me. The money hasn't been there to satisfy a need or a want. There's other things that I would draw from, such as volunteering. Volunteering is very, very important. I started my fashion industry career as a volunteer. I volunteered for New York Fashion Week. When I finally moved to Charleston, South Carolina in 2012, and I got my degree I got my BFA in fashion marketing and retail management. And I will tell you guys, I decided to go to the Art Institute because I got into a place in my career where I felt like I had really done a lot. I had clients, I had a reputation. At this point, I had an established name in the industry. I didn't have a brand yet. I had a name, and I felt that there was more that should be happening for me, but it just wasn't happening. And I felt that there was a barrier because I didn't have an education. You have to remember, I did all that as a college dropout. And so I felt that when I looked at job descriptions and I looked at opportunities that would pop up, that I would say, oh, I'd love to do that, or I'd love to work there, I'd love to work for this company. When I looked at the requirements, seeing that education requirement always was a trigger for me. And I had applied for all kind of jobs. I had a really nice portfolio. I had a really nice MySpace page and Twitter profile, and my social media was popping. And I felt that surely I would be seen as valuable. I don't have the education, but if they look at my experience, they'll know that I can do this. But I will tell you, I never got a response from anybody I ever applied to. I never got a call, not even for an interview, just never happened. And I have navigated, I will tell you this, that I have navigated my career just by relationship and by people knowing me through this or through that avenue. And a lot of what I have been able to do in my career came because I volunteered. I took advantage of opportunities to help. At heart, I'm a servant. I'm a servant leader at heart. And so I always am looking for a way to give, always looking for a way to contribute. And I believe in being a part of causes. I've done philanthropy work all of my life. And so volunteering is kind of innate for me. But I want to speak to that because I know that many times there's this negative context around volunteering, and people think of people have negative experiences with volunteering, and most of that is because you feel taken advantage of, or there's this narrative that oh, you shouldn't be working for free or doing things for free. But I'm telling you, the things that I did that were unpaid are the reasons why I'm paid today. Now, I'm not telling you to go and just be taken advantage of, but I'm just saying to be sensitive. You have intelligence. You will know what to do. I don't take advantage. I don't allow myself to be taken advantage of. I don't take every opportunity that comes my way, but there are certain things you will see and they speak to you, they resonate, and there's something in it for you. So it's okay to go to it. It's okay to do it. And don't allow anybody to make you feel bad about giving up your time in that way. I will tell you that when I volunteered for Charleston Fashion Week the first time, I was stuck in the back taking out trash. I was stuck ushering and taking out trash. And at this point, I had my company. I had been a producer for Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, working with LDJ and IMG for about 7-8 years at this point. And so I felt, I'm a professional. I do this at a New York level, and I've come to Charleston, South Carolina, and they stick me taking out trash and working at the door. But I did not think that I was too big to do that. I did not think that I was too great to do that. I said, I understand the value of that, because guess what? I've been a volunteer. And so I know what it is to work backstage. I still take out trash. Nobody takes the trash out for me in my apartment. I take out my own trash. So I can take out the trash here. But I'm telling you, it was that experience that then the next year I was asked to work on the leadership team with Charleston Fashion Week. And I was assigned to work with Fern Malice when she came, who's the creator of New York Fashion Week again. And for 5 years, she and I, that was my Fashion Week, Charleston Fashion Week buddy. When she came every year, she asked for me. I never got $1 for doing that. And for 5 years in a row, every Charleston Fashion Week, I would be able to take off, and I would work with Fern and just be her assistant on ground and go shopping with her, and we'd eat and we'd look at the designer collections, we'd critique, and we were able to talk. She knew that I was well knowledgeable about the industry. I knew what was going on. I followed the industry. I wasn't in New York. I was not in New York, but I still was aware of what was going on. And so I could talk to her professional to professional, and we developed a friendship. And then in 2017, I then moved to New York finally and worked out of her office, which is where many of you may know me from, who met me in New York, working with Fern since 2017 up until July of 2020 last year. And we'll talk more about that, but that is how that happened, because we formed a relationship. So I can look back and say, I gave them a lot of time, effort, and I put a lot of energy into what I was doing and a lot of value just by me being there and contributing. But there was a return later. And oftentimes where you sow is not necessarily where you reap, but if you do so, you will reap. Just understand that. Next slide, Lizzie. This is very important. Spheres of influence take time to expand. Now, I know we're in the age of the influencer. So like I said, when I came along, influencers weren't a thing. That wasn't a career. Nobody was trying to be an influencer. It just happened. This time it just happened. And then I think once it became a thing, people realized, oh, now this is something that I can be. So I want to be an influencer. But authentic influence is built over time. Authentic influence is built over time. In my career, how I got to where I got, as how I'm sitting here before you today as a multi-hyphenate, because when people look at my career, oh, you do PR, you've done marketing, you've done creative direction, you've done events, you do consulting. How did you do all of this, and where did you start? I started with one thing, and everything that I've done in my life has built on to the next. I started with PR, and PR added on marketing, and then marketing added on creative direction, and add on from there to consulting. And so it's just gone on and on and on based on opportunity that came to me based on just my movement in the industry. I had no plan. I had no vision of, oh, I'm going to do this for 5 years and then get here in 8 years and get here in 6 years. If you do, that's fine. I just didn't have that for myself. And so for me, everything has built on itself. And as it was building, I realized that so was my sphere of influence. You know, you having relationships here and relationships there, and people being able to rely on you for this and being able to rely on you for that. And as you build your sphere of influence, that's how you establish a brand. Effective branding is done through influence. I know when we think of branding, oftentimes, and many of you who are listening as outsiders, you may feel like I've got to start a brand, which the first thing you want to go to is get a logo, get your get your Instagram page up, get your website up, get your Facebook page popping, get an identity. Those are the identities. Those are the extensions of branding. Those are an extension of branding, and it has to do with your identity and design, but it is not what your brand is. And I'm telling you, when you build authentically and you engage authentically, you will be able to expand, and you will find that you've been building a brand before you even knew that you were building a brand. Lizzie, do we have any questions?
Hello, Elliot. It looks like we have a couple. One is from Jay, and they asked, do you feel as if a degree is in fact a necessity in order to obtain personal goals and aspirations in the industry?
I would say that it's relative. I would say that it's relative because you have to understand the way that the industry works. Many times it's not that you have to have a degree, but if you don't have one, you're going to have to know who can get you in or who can vouch for you when a degree doesn't speak for you on a piece of paper, which would be your resume. So the truth of the matter is you do not, but based on certain spaces in the industry, these unspoken rules and these unspoken ways that gatekeepers operate through and by and in sometimes will keep you out. So I would say it really, for me, it would depend on what it is that you're doing. If I would say you should get your degree or you shouldn't get your degree. But what pursuing a degree will do is expand your awareness as to different avenues and different ways that you can use what it is that you're wanting to do in the industry. I will tell you that school, although I can't say I necessarily learned a lot about fashion because I was so knowledgeable and I had so much experience, I did learn more things that I could do with my abilities. And that was something that hadn't been revealed to me until I went to school.
Thank you so much for that response, Elliot. Another question we received is from Elena, and she asked, how do you find volunteer opportunities?
Oh, good. Well, honestly, they're hard now. They're not as available as they used to be. But I would say depends on what you want to do. For me, Fashion Week, they don't have the volunteer program that they used to because of labor laws now. And you all have to remember, you used to be able to really get a pretty interesting unpaid internship, but we all know that fashion doesn't necessarily always treat its people very kind. And so there became all of those lawsuits about students and being taken advantage of. And so now we have these labor laws that you have to be a student in order to get internships now. But I would say, build relationships with people in the areas that you want to be in, such as events. If you want to work in events, then you should be establishing relationships, or even via social media, Instagram, connecting with a lot of event coordinators and finding out who these people are, and just sending them DMs and saying, hey, I'm a person who is interested in X, Y, and Z. I see that you're doing A, B, and C, and I'd love to be a part of D, E, F, G, and it works for you. Social media the landscape is a little different now because you have access access in a way that we didn't have access. So before, information was more key versus access. And so now I would say that because of the way that you can access people, just use your social media. I wish I could tell you a particular website that has volunteer opportunities or some specific source, but they're not. For me, anything that comes across my desk, I try to be very open and share. I post a lot of things in my stories on Instagram. I try to make information available because I know it just wasn't always available to me like that. And so I'm always thinking about other people and things they can be involved in. But I would also say, make sure you align yourself with CFDA's impact program. We try to funnel things through the program as well. But there's no one direct source. But I say, if there's something you're interested in and you know who's putting it on, or who is producing it, or who's leading it, then just reach out to the leads and say, I'm interested in volunteering. How could I be a part? How could I be of service?
Thanks, Elliot. And I have to say, I also am from the events world originally. So if you guys have any questions too, you can always reach out to anyone on the Creatively team. But if you are curious about something like events, you can always DM me on Creatively, and I'm happy to help answer any questions regarding the events world. But the next question we have is from Juan Pablo, and he is wondering, he says, I am a senior management consultant at a Big Four consulting firm. My experience as business and strategy consultant often leaves me wondering if that fits within the fashion industry, because often I come across as someone with good experience and knowledge, but I don't know how to make that move into fashion using my experience. Any advice? So this sounds like an industry pivot.
Yes. Well, first, the answer is yes. And it actually ties into the other paragraph I have here I want to talk about. So let me talk about this, and I'm going to speak to that. I want to talk about the word pivot, because last year in the midst of the pandemic, while we were in quarantine, pivot was the buzzword of the year. I swear I was getting sick up to my ears of this word. And people were just, using it to say, I think we needed something to feel like we were being productive. And so people, well, I'm pivoting. It's time to pivot. I'm gonna pivot. And so people were reaching out to me as a consultant and saying, I just want to sit and talk with you because I want to pivot my business and I want to pivot my brand. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm going back to you as a business strategy consultant. This was a perfect time for you. This is a perfect time for you to catch people who are trying to pivot. Most people in the fashion industry, since you want to go into fashion, who are creatives and who have built their business and brand around their creativity, most of them, and this is no shade, and this isn't to demean them, but most of them lack the business acumen that's needed, and that's just, it's left brain, right brain. You understand it. But most of them need a business person by their side to help them to channel their creativity, to help them expand their creativity, and sometimes to put their creativity in a business context. Because there's many people who are fabulous, awesome creators. I can tell you as a consultant, I know so many people who their Instagrams are popping. They have thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers. I mean, they have imagery out of this world. They have a product out of this world, but I can tell you behind the scenes, they're not making money. They're not selling. And it's not because there's anything wrong with the product. They just don't understand how to move the product through the business, because again, fashion is a system. It's a business system, or it's a business that runs on a system. You would help people to be able to understand systems. And there's a lot of opportunity for you as a business consultant in fashion. Absolutely. And if you would like to reach out to me, we can have a deeper conversation about that. I don't mind. I definitely don't mind. But yes, there is room for you. There is space for you. The beauty about fashion is it constantly evolves and changes. I mean, those of you who are listening, you may have the experience I have. Oftentimes I get on LinkedIn and I'll see someone promoted to a new position, and I'm like, what? That's a position? Where did that come from? I know somebody who can do that, or I know somebody who can do this. And it's like, I mean, there are positions you didn't even know about existed. Many of them are being created. I just learned this week, one of my mentees got an opportunity in the industry. And it's an opportunity that I had never even heard of. It literally was a word that I didn't even know existed. And I'm like, they created that for you, which is awesome. That's the beauty of an industry like this. It is built on creativity. And so it's just about tying business to creativity, and which is why those of you who are listening, pivot is such a it's such an opportunity, but understanding how to do it. See, successful people, I put here, successful people pivot like players, like in basketball. You plant one foot, but you can move the other, meaning you have an anchor. You have an anchor, but you're able to make certain turns and shifts and movements. Many people thought they were pivoting last year, and they weren't really pivoting. They were doing more traveling, because you really haven't anchored anything that you can now, make turns and moves with. And so you get to decide, which is why I said at the beginning, deciding how you want to show up, how you want to present in this industry, what it is that you want to be, how are you going to define yourself, and what can people expect from you. And then you're able to make these shifts. And so you can evolve. You can evolve as the industry evolves. There may be a demand for you to do PR at this point. Then there may be a demand for you to do design. And then there may be a demand for you to be, a ballet person is a ballet dancer is one of the most biggest movement directors in the industry. Stephen Galloway, I met him a few years ago, and his career, his story was so inspiring to me, because I was like, you started an entire career in the industry working with models and designers, but you come from the ballet. He was a ballet dancer, but because he knew how to move, he teaches models now how to move and pose and even walk on runways and create movement in photos. And he's one of the top movement directors in the industry. I didn't know that we had movement directors in the industry. And I'm like, I took ballet. I was a show choir kid. I did ballet, tap, jazz, modern. I could have just been doing that and been hanging out with Naomi and all of the models and just saying, oh, put your hand there, do this. I'm sure it's more technical than that, but you just never know. So you can pivot at any given time, and there is a place and a space for you. Next slide, Lizzie. This is very important. This is very, very important. You are the bag, so be sure to secure yourself. And I put here, somebody might say, well, he misspelled that. No, I'm talking about yourself, your internal self. No matter what industry you're in, you will be pulled on. You are a giver. You will be pulled on. You will be drawn on all the time. You will be tugged upon. You will be pulled in. You will be asked and inquired of. And you have to remember to secure yourself. One of the things that I don't care how awesome you are as a designer, I don't care how gifted you are as a writer, I don't care how awesome you are as a performer, a model on the runway, photographer, whatever it is that you do, it matters not. But if you do not take care of this in here, if you do not take care of this in here, you will not last long. You do not last long. And so one of the biggest things that I tell people, especially in an industry that's demanding, that's as demanding as fashion or even entertainment or even the medical field, I think about those people all the time, especially what we're dealing with now. If we didn't learn anything as a people last year, the pandemic taught us to put health first. And that's not just going to the doctor. That's not just, eating 3 meals a day. That's getting rest. For me, people ask you go all the time, but you're people who just don't know how much I sleep. My friends and my circle of influence will tell you I get a lot of sleep. I take a lot of naps, because you have to remain clear. You have to be healthy enough for your assignment. You have to be healthy enough for the career. Well, it's not good to get $1 million and then you're too sick to enjoy it. Nobody wants that. So you have to make sure that you secure yourself. I put here, health and wealth go hand in hand. Health in hand. Self-care will keep you connected to the definition of success for you, the definition of success for you. One of the things that I encourage all of you to do is to really sit with yourself, clear your mind of the imagery, the pictures that you've seen, what other people are doing, how they did it, but sit with yourself and say, for me, what does success look like for me in this industry? Everybody isn't going to be mega. Everybody isn't going to have the mega fame. Everybody isn't going to be global. Everybody isn't going to be international. But that does not mean that you cannot be successful. That does not mean that you cannot work. That does not mean you cannot create and take care of yourself and others. That just means that you get to define what it's going to be for you, so you're not messed up with comparing another person's picture with the vision that you have for yourself, or clouding the vision that you have for yourself based on another person's picture. That's very key. That's very key in this business. That's very key in life. And I want to give that to you because this is what we all have been given, I believe, in this past year, and taking time to reassess. It's not just by chance that even creatively would come to be in this last year and provide a place for us to work and engage and show ourselves and showcase ourselves in a new way, and engage opportunity in a new way. Technology should make things easier. Technology should make things easier, but sometimes us trying to wrap our minds around it becomes more complicated. But I'm really excited about the opportunity that we have with this particular platform, and what CFDA is doing through Impact. And I'm looking forward to all of the more classes and all of the opportunities that will come, and the jobs that are being placed there, and opportunities in education, because these things really do matter. These are the things that help you keep going, because sometimes, especially when you're on the outside, you feel like you have no agency. You feel like you're alone. You feel like, you're alone. And oftentimes, especially as people of color, just considering the history of this country, but also just considering the way that things have been structured and set against us, and the barriers that we have in many ways. I can only be who I am and speak to that. We have to have moments, and we have to have agency. We have to have resources of inspiration and empowerment, so that we can keep going together as a community. And so that's the power in having a class like this. I want to take some more questions before we wrap up.
Hey, Elliot. We have a question earlier. Let me find it. First of all, we have had so many incredible comments from everyone in the audience who directly chatted to us and also chatted to the larger group, but thank you all so much for your feedback. This is our last call for questions, so if you do have one, definitely let us know. But it looks like we actually had a hand raised from Alex Mitchell. So Alex, I'm gonna go ahead and allow you to speak, and you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly to Elliot.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming to speak. I've been excited for this class all week.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. I just was wondering, for me personally, I'm a little bit more on the introverted side. I just graduated from Penn State, so I'm just starting out. I have a degree in English, so not what I'm looking to do. I'm more on like the makeup artist, art type of side of things. And I'm thinking I might want to be an art director. Kind of lost, not really sure, but I've found trouble connecting with other people. I kind of find it a little bit daunting, especially in a world as large as arts and entertainment, and so niche as arts and entertainment. So I was kind of wondering if you had any advice on that.
Well, you said something very key, because you said you're an introvert, and which you're the direct opposite of as me, if you can't tell. I'm an extreme extrovert, but I do have a very introverted nature. I would say to you, sometimes there's little things like, are you speaking in terms of networking, or are you just saying in terms of engaging, period, in the industry, or in
I guess a little bit of both. I feel like when there's like a person-to-person interaction, it's a little bit easier for me, but
so you mean like
reaching out to people, it's kind of hard to take that first jump, to be like, hey, my name is Alex and I'm this, that, and the third, and how do you do this? So
well, here's the thing. This is what I like to teach people: to lead with what can I give versus what I'm trying to get. And the reason why I say that is because oftentimes there's a little bit of dissonance going on in your psyche, because of the fact that you're wanting to make a genuine connection, but in essence, you're asking for something, right? So I find that if you just lead with giving something instead of getting something, that the flow will be a little bit more genuine. So for instance, offering your services, or just introducing yourself and saying, I've really admired you. These are the things that I've admired about you. And I'm really interested in X, Y, and Z that you do too, although I do not have any experience in that. But this is something that I find interesting, and I just wanted to connect with you based on that. You can say that to people. I appreciate when people reach out to me like that. For me, I would say, as one who gets a lot of DMs and messages on LinkedIn, one of the things that is very loud, I would say, and carries a little bit of a negative vibration with it, is when people are reaching out and they want something, but just not saying what it is that they want up front. I believe in this industry, when you're dealing with, or even in entertainment, when you're dealing with people that are getting a lot of messages, I promise you, they appreciate the directness. Like, you're not going to be intrusive by just keeping it short and just saying, hey, I'm interested in this because I really admire you and I'd like to offer this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
So that you don't have to deal with, because what it really is, you're struggling with, I don't want to feel guilty. I don't want to feel, I know it's very real, but you're not. Just take that out of the equation and say, I'm writing you because I want to give you something, even if it's just as simple as an introduction to who I am. That's a gift.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I have like one small other question. I'm sorry if I'm taking up time. You did mention something about making building at home. Mm-hmm. I'm from Philadelphia, and I kind of live in a less than ideal situation. I know that you touched on that, and I thank you for sharing that as well, because that really connected with my experience. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of start from that at home instead of moving to New York or LA?
Well, you're in Philadelphia, which is good. I actually currently am leading a program with CFDA called CFDA Connects, and it actually is a program that supports regional fashion weeks and fashion programs. Philadelphia is actually one of my program members. So I'm happy, reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect you with Kevin and Carrie, who are the gentlemen that produce Philadelphia Fashion Week. And they're also with the Philadelphia Fashion and Garment Industry Task Force. And that'll be a great resource for you. And I'm happy to do that.
Okay, sounds good. That would be really great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. We have another question from Sophia. So Sophia, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak, and you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Great. I love that you all are asking questions.
Hi. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I can.
Okay, great. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for for doing this, and a lot of what you said really resonated with me. Especially since I'm just a newer business owner, and I went from being a fashion designer in the industry to freelancing on my own.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So moving from New York to Texas, and now I'm just sort of trying to live my life through these clients. So I asked earlier about creating a consistent stream of clients, how you do that when you're sort of new in the industry. And then, the other thing I wanted to talk about is how it works in terms of mentorship. Have you had, I guess, or do you know a specific good way to find mentorship in your specific area?
Yes. Well, I will say to you, what part of Texas are you in?
I'm in San Antonio.
Oh, I will connect you with a woman by the name of Burgundy Wood. She's a part of my program too.
Yeah. Actually, I joined her TFII.
Okay.
So I'm a member now, and I'm super excited. Haven't been really out to the events just yet because there's, the pandemic is still sort of iffy over here, but I'm super excited to be a part of that. And
oh, well, I won't take more time on that then, because you and I we'll talk more through that program, because I have some things coming up. So we'll talk, and I will actually be there in October. So we'll talk.
Amazing.
Yeah. But your other question, you asked two questions.
Yeah, mentorship and creating a steady stream, I guess, of clients when you're new in the industry.
Yes. Let me tell you, I left this part out. So I quit working for Fern in the middle of the pandemic, July 1st of 2020. I quit. And I said, I had no plan. I'm telling you, I had no plan at all. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I just went back to the last thing. I'm like, oh, I'll just go back into consulting. We were in the middle of a pandemic. I'm like, am I applying for a job? Nobody's hiring right now. We don't know what's going on. So I just said, I'm going to position myself as a consultant. I made no announcements, didn't send out anything letting people know that I was on the market or anything like that. But just in my volunteering, I was doing a lot of diversity and inclusion talking. Of course, it was in the middle of the Black Lives Matter movement last year. And I was like, I'm just going to do this every day. And what I need is going to show up, because I really had no plan. But I will tell you what I do know is when you just start operating and you just build consistency in what you're doing, people will start looking for you. I know you're in a new place and a new space, so it's going to be different for you, but people will start looking for you. You just have to be very creative in what it is that you're doing, but you must be consistent. And we'll talk more about that, getting together on a one-on-one, and I'll make sure I speak to Burgundy about that. But it's different for everybody, so there is no cookie cutter way. The way that it worked for me is not going to be the way that it worked for you, but what I can give you is principles and things that will inspire what's in you that's going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question, Sophia. I'm going to go ahead and have Carla ask her question. So Carla, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak so you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can.
Oh, hello, Elliot. First of all, thank you so much for everything you said. It was so inspiring, and you give me so much hope as well. I am from Mexico. I'm currently living in Mexico. And well, I want to give you a little bit of context. I will be graduating next semester, hopefully, from industrial design. But my dream has always been, like the fashion industry. I want to work in the fashion industry. And in 2019, I was working so hard to go abroad, and hopefully I did. Luckily I was lucky enough to get a scholarship and go to study a semester in Poland. Mm-hmm. And I also was lucky enough to travel a bit. So all that the street style, just inspired me. And I practically have everything inside my head. But here, well, I have like two problems, because in Mexico, unfortunately, the fashion industry and the design industry, it's so elitist, and you have to be part of the system, to become someone, to do someone, and also to have the amount of money necessary to do it. And I don't have neither of those. Mm-hmm. So right now I'm in this pencil academy. I want this award to be like in the introduction, mm-hmm. before the master's class. Mm-hmm. And like the prize is to get an internship in Foot Locker or in New Balance. But also I think I'm not able to win it because I'm not an American citizen. So my question for you will be like, how can I get a mentorship or something that can help me to get into the fashion industry, or something that can help me get there easily? Because I feel like I've been struggling so much and working so hard.
Yes.
And I feel a bit frustrated since I came back from my semester abroad. I feel like I have done nothing, but I'm so tired because I feel like I've been working so much, but not getting to anything.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, first, let me say congratulations to you for, first of all, continuing to show up, even feeling like you're not doing anything or you're not making any progress. I know that's tough. We often don't think about what it takes just to show up every day. And so I want to applaud you for that, number one. And I hope you celebrate that with yourself. You're not as defeated as you may feel, the fact that you were even able to express that. So I will say that there are a lot of opportunities, especially for mentorships and for even internships, but I know that there are so many qualifications for them that do require you to be associated with a particular entity or company or come from a particular school. And that's one of the things that we're working through with Impact to widen those pipelines and to provide more opportunities. So I will say you've already taken the first step by being a part of this program and taking this class today. And I'm going to look into, I do have a resource, and I know someone who is working on some things in Mexico that I'm happy to connect you with. She's based here in New York, but she's in Mexico almost every other month working on projects that are fashion centric. So I would be happy to connect you with her. And I believe that she'll be a great resource for you.
Thank you so much, Elliot. I will.
You to reach out to me, just send me a DM and I'll make sure I connect you with her.
Of course, I will. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, and keep your head up.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I know that you feel fashion. I even like the way you said it. Fashion.
Yeah. Fashion. It's my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elliot.
All right, Elliot, that is actually all of our questions, I believe. Oh, actually, let me see if we have one more. We do have one more. This is from Zanis. Apology, I almost missed this in the Q&A tool. But he says, I've owned and operated my lifestyle brand alone since 2010. I am a creative that does not fully understand the business side of the fashion industry. I'd like to know more about mentoring and volunteering. Or would you suggest I bring in a business partner, I'm assuming who has that knowledge and can bring that into his business?
Oh, good. I would say, first of all, congratulations for your sustainability. Long term, a business consultant would be awesome. Calvin Klein wouldn't be Calvin Klein without Barry Schwartz. Yves Saint Laurent wouldn't be Yves Saint Laurent without Pierre Berger. Marc Jacobs and Robert Duffy. I mean, when you look at all the major designers, all of them have a business partner. All of them, Tory Burch. I mean, goodness gracious. What Chris did, and that's not to say she didn't have it, but I'm saying it's navigating two different dimensions at the same time, which you can do, but it makes it easier when you have someone else when you have someone else that can help you navigate that. So I do recommend that long term, but so you can have some immediate access, because that, getting a business partner or someone to a consultant, that can be a little bit extensive of a process, because I say it's like dating. You have to date them. It's like models. I tell models, when you're looking for an agent, you want to date them, somebody that you really feel out, make sure they feel you, make sure they really get your vision. There's a lot of people out here that will just take your money. They don't believe in your vision or not. Whether they believe in your vision or not, they'll take your money because you're just another client, you're another number. So I recommend to get a long-term relationship. And that way, you need to date that person. You need to try out a few people, have some conversation. But as far as immediate opportunities, I'm not sure where you're based, but here in New York, you don't have to be in New York to utilize them. But there is an organization called Raise Fashion Now, and they you can Google that, raise your hand. RaiseFashionNow.org is the website, I believe, and it's a nonprofit organization that does offer mentorships and mentoring and consulting is short term, and it's basically project based, but in all areas of business you can go there, and they have some mentors and consultants from all aspects of the industry, from some of the major companies in the industry. And so that's a great resource for you that I do know. And also we'll be bringing, voices through CFDA's IMPACT program and the Creatively classes as well. But that's some immediate access that you can have, and you just go there and you reach out and they will respond. But outside of that, getting a long-term business consultant, you'll need it. It's a wise relationship to have. Mm-hmm.
All right, Elliot, I think that's it. Thank you so much. Would you like to leave everyone with some parting words?
Oh, I would just say thank you. I never take it lightly that people invest their time to tune in when I'm talking. It's something that I understand time is the only thing that you can't get back. So I hope that something that I said today resonated with you, or lifted you, or empowered you, educated you in some way, and that it was a worthy investment of your time. And I thank Lizzie and the entire Creatively team. You all have been incredible from day one, continue to be, and I appreciate the opportunity today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elliot. We're going to go ahead and put up a slide with Elliot's information as well, and you can, of course, find him on Creatively. But thank you again, Elliot, for your time and so many nuggets of wisdom for all of us. The comments in the chat, again, have just been so incredible. So thank you so much for being open and honest and vulnerable with our community. And we look forward to seeing what everyone creates next.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.